Results and relationships. There has always been a tension between them both, isn't it? A tug of war of sorts. And trying to balance them both is not easy. Especially during a time like this when everyone is at home. My children, both of them have online classes, and my wife is managing projects, attending meetings, and of course managing people. And together we are trying to manage time, space, tasks, and each other. And it's not been easy. What about you? How are you managing during this time? Are you struggling to manage and balance relationships and results? Well, Leo Tolstoy tells about a king who had these three questions in his mind. Who was the most important person in his life? What is the most important task to do? And what is the best time to do such a task? So he asked all the wise men in his kingdom and beyond to find answers to these three questions. The wise men searched, reflected, and came back with a lot of answers. But the king was not happy with any of them. He knew something was really missing and he wanted clarity. When he heard about a hermit who lived in the mountain and was known to be a man of enlightenment, he decided to go and meet him. But when he came to know that the hermit will only see poor people, he decided to go in disguise. So he took his bodyguards with him to the foot of the mountain, left them there, changed into a poor man's clothing, climbed all the way up to the mountain. When he reached the top of the mountain, it was evening time, and he saw the hermit in the clearing digging a garden. The king went to the hermit and asked him the three questions. The hermit just smiled and kept on digging. When the king saw that the hermit was very tired and old, he said, "Let me help you," took the spade and began to dig the garden himself. Time passed on and the king repeated the same questions. But the hermit responded with an answer and said, "If you are tired, I can take over." The king said, "No problem," and began to continue helping the hermit. As the king, tired by now, was about to ask the questions the third time, they saw a man running into the clearing who was wounded and blood was flowing from his stomach. But before the man could reach either of them, he collapsed on the ground unconscious. The king ran to him, removed his outer garment and wrapped it around the man, trying to stop the flow of blood. But the blood would not stop. Then the king ran to the stream and back to the man, back to the stream, back to the man many times until the flow of blood was stopped, and the king bandaged the man's wound with his dress. Then the king and the hermit, they lifted the man and took him to the hermit's hut and laid him on a cot. A visibly tired king sat at the doorstep and drifted off to sleep. The next day morning, he woke up, kind of dazed and confused as to where he was, but then realized the situation, turned and looked at the man who was on the bed, who was looking at him with a very strong intent. The king went to the man and asked him how he was feeling. The man said, "Forgive me." The king was now more confused than ever, but on asking further questions came to know that this man was his enemy and he had sworn to kill the king. So when he came to know that the king had gone up the mountain on his own, he came to kill him. But the soldiers, they found this man and they wounded him. And as he was trying to escape from the soldiers, he went up the mountain. But now the king himself has saved his life. And so the man said, he is no more the king's enemy, but is going to be the king's friend for life. The king was overjoyed by this transformation, and he promised to send his physicians and his soldiers to take care of the wounded man. The king stepped out and he saw the hermit sitting by the stream. He went to the hermit and asked him the 3 questions again. The hermit looked at him, smiled, and he said, "You already have the answers, my king." The king, surprised, looked at the hermit for more clarity, and the hermit said, "You know, my king, the most important person yesterday was me for you. You saw my difficulty and you stepped in to help me, and that was the most important task. And the most important time was the time you spent helping me dig that garden, which I couldn't have done on my own. A little later, the most important person changed for you. It was the man who came running to the clearing wounded. He became the most important person for you. And the most important task was the task of bandaging his wounds and taking care of him. And the most important time was the time you spent with that man." The king was overjoyed on hearing these 3 answers, and he began to practice them in his life. Powerful and simple, isn't it? 3 questions. What about us? What about me? How do we practice these 3 questions in our search for balance between results and relationships? Who is the most important person in our life? That is the relationship question. When it comes to that, how do we spend time with people? How are we treating people? Remember, this is the only time we have with people. And the person before you, whether physically or virtually, is the most important person for you in your life. To answer question number 2, what is the most important task, which is all about results, is this: the task you are engaged with, that person is the most important task. Because by doing that task, you are making a difference in that person's life. Putting together relationship and results, we need to ask and remember what is said by John Maxwell. He talks about, in every conversation, practice the AAA treatment: attention, affirmation, and appreciation. If we can follow this AAA treatment with every person we interact with, we will make a difference. The 3rd question: what is the most important time? Well, you guessed it. It is now, right now. There is no other time given to us. Now is the only time we have to make a difference in someone's life. Bill Keane says, "Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. But today is a gift, and that is why it is called as a present." What about you? Do you know the answer to these 3 questions? Who is the most important person in your life? What is the most important thing to do? And 3, what is the most important time to do that thing? Go on. Make a difference in someone's life today. Thank you, and God bless you.